What's up, guys? This is Adam from Rescue Michigan. Hopefully live on YouTube, Facebook, X, the former Twitter, and shouldn't be uploaded on Rumble. Unannounced stream should be a short one tonight, but I think it's important to talk about what has been going on with the ouster of House Speaker Kevin McCarthy. Not just as an academic question, because there's actually something important that we need to be doing about it, because the question now becomes, who will the next Speaker of the House be? So let's talk about it for a moment here. Well, first, let's talk about the big picture. In the long run, what Matt Gaetz did was historic. Getting the Speaker of the House removed from power is something that hasn't happened. I've heard some people say at least 100 years, and some said ever. So that's an important moment. And this is a good thing for the long run institution, that leadership for once is held accountable, because the trend has been in Congress and in Lansing, and I would assume other state legislatures, it's extremely top heavy leadership. And the speaker calls the shots. In Lansing, the speaker can fire the lawmakers' staff. They're that powerful. They are in total control once they cast that vote for speaker. Almost everything else is a foregone conclusion. I mean, not everything, but in terms of what even gets to a vote, all kinds of stuff is in control of the speaker. And Speaker McCarthy being held accountable for his broken promises, let's remember that, is a good thing. And this may change what happens in Washington. We're already hearing people in the news who are furious about this say the speaker can never ever allow for there to be another motion to dismiss the speaker. I forget the name of it's called, but effectively the motion to vacate the speaker. That's what it is. I would say the opposite. I think that should be something that we should always be demanding. And in state legislatures, this may change custom as well, because in Washington, it's always been customary that the party in the majority, they vote for the speaker. The party in the minority always votes no. But in Lansing, that's not how it goes. Historically, in fact, until this year, as far back as I can recall, the speakers in Lansing were elected unanimously. The minority party voted for the speaker, and they would be punished if they didn't vote for the speaker. And in fact, this year, several Republicans in the minority in the House voted against the speaker and were punished for voting no. But now that the dam has burst, and now that, as Democrats are claiming in Washington, they say it's the responsibility of the Republicans to elect the speaker, and we're not going to help them do it. So now that the whole country is seeing that that's how it's done in Washington, maybe this is not the way it's going to be done in Lansing in the future. And besides the long-term institutional issues, yes, obviously the fact that Kevin McCarthy finally got his comeuppance is wonderful, because he broke his promises. Remember, there were specific things he said he was going to do as speaker. He made these promises as a condition of becoming speaker, including having a transparent budget process, having no more continuing resolutions, which of course is exactly what happened before Matt Gaetz brought the motion to vacate. And most importantly, I think he broke his promises on Ukraine funding. And although it is true that they did actually pass a continuing resolution that had no funding for Ukraine in it, which is actually significant, because in the weeks leading up until this point, they were openly saying that that's what they were demanding. In fact, the White House said, we are not going to fund disaster relief unless and until we're funding Ukraine and the war against Russia. That was, in my view, a naked act of political hostage taking. I mean, think about it. People who are suffering from fires and hurricanes aren't going to get relief until we fund the war in Ukraine. That was what the Democrats were saying. And there was lots of Republicans that are happy to go along with that too. So credit to McCarthy, I guess, for passing the continuing resolution with no money for Ukraine in it. But It was widely acknowledged in Washington that there was a deal that he had made behind closed doors with the Democrats. They were going to have a vote on Ukraine funding, and there was some kind of deal that was at work, and the press got wind of it. It had been talked about. It was none that was going to happen. And, Matt Gaetz really, first off, it was a very, very surprising play that it succeeded. And it sounds like McCarthy had been misled by the Democrats that they were going to vote to keep him as speaker. And the official excuse they gave was completely phony when they said, well, we were going to support McCarthy to stay on as speaker, but then we saw he was on Face the Nation over the weekend and said he was going to blame Democrats if there was a government shutdown, which is absolutely absurd. First and foremost, because the parties always blame each other when there's a shutdown. That's like nothing extraordinary. That's completely ordinary. That's common. That's what they do. So the Democrats stabbed McCarthy in the back, and obviously what their real agenda was to cause as much chaos as possible to disrupt the Republican caucus. But Gaetz went out on a limb, and I think in the long term, it's going to be a good thing. And the Democrats weren't thinking long term. They're thinking this is going to be a cheap political stunt. It's going to make the Republicans look bad. So let's go for it. But the question now becomes who the next speaker will be. Although before I move on to that, the other thing I want to say too is the way Matt Gaetz handled the media that day was absolutely phenomenal, pitch perfect. And I thought, and especially also with his colleagues on the floor, I don't know if you saw this, but his response when someone tried to claim, how dare Matt Gaetz fundraise over this? He's trying to just make money off this, which is, again, absurd because that's what they always do in Washington. Whenever they do anything, let's give me money. I did yada, yada. Give me money. I'm doing yada. And Gaetz came right back and said, I'm happy that people are supporting me for doing the right thing. And you guys are all getting support from the lobbyists for doing the wrong thing. I'm okay with having my grassroots army giving me $10, $20, $30 contributions, supporting me for doing this. And I'm not ashamed to ask them. So good for him for calling out that stupid play, that cynical play to try to guilt trip a politician over heaven forfend they have grassroots support. Oh my gosh. And God forbid a politician asks the grassroots for money when they know they're not going to get it from the establishment. But here we are. So now the question becomes, who's the next speaker? Who will it be? And what role should we have in talking to our Republican congressman? And some of us in Michigan still have one. Some of us don't, but many of us do. And it's an important question. So let's talk about a few possible scenarios here. Okay, first of all, the time frame. And we don't know. This could be resolved tomorrow, or this could take a very, very long time. And my suspicion is the Democrats are going to want to make it take as long as they possibly can. So how long might that be? Well, here's a clue. The continuing resolution they passed was good for 45 days. If they don't pass something between now and November 15th, we have a government shutdown. And the way these shutdowns always go, the way they always go, is the Democrats get the upper hand sooner or later. Not because the public is so upset about the shutdowns. That's what the lawmakers are led to believe, and that's often why the Republicans seem to capitulate. But the real reason why Republicans lose in a shutdown is because after about a week or two, the American people start to realize they don't need the federal government very much anymore. And the lobbyists start panicking, and the lobbyists start to kick the Republicans' butts into, you better shut this, you better get this shutdown over with. And sooner or later, they always capitulate. But now the question becomes, will the Democrats hold the House without a speaker if the government shuts down because they don't have a speaker? We don't know. We don't know where this is going to go. But that's the big question. Oh, and by the way, just to give you guys a heads up, Trump's not going to be the speaker. I hate to say it, hate to rain on your parade, because I know some of you guys were hoping Donald Trump will be the next speaker. It's not going to happen. And there's a few reasons for this. I mean, reason number one is because Trump does not have the votes in the Republican caucus. He has a lot of friends in Washington, as he likes to say, but he also has his enemies in the GOP and people who would never vote for him. But also there's the fact that Trump wouldn't actually want to be speaker. I did see the article. I'm sure you guys have seen it. Where is it? He said Trump says he would accept the House speakership for a short period while the Republicans sort things out. This was kind of floated at the beginning of the year, by the way. You might remember this. Robert Barnes was suggesting they might do something like this. And again, this problem they had with this problem they have now, which is that he doesn't have the votes. But also, in the context of a campaign, why would Trump want to be the Speaker of the House? Speaker of the House is one of the most hated people in Washington. What's he going to do? Sign the continuing resolution, one that Matt Gaetz just knocked out the Speaker of the House for supporting, or another CR, I mean, or Ukraine funding, or another out of control budget? Would Speaker Trump want to sign off on that? He wouldn't want to be in that position. Plus, he's got to run for president and deal with his court cases. So, no, Trump is not going to be the next speaker. There has been talk that maybe it could be some outsider. In fact, I saw in the chat, Mark suggesting Sarah Palin. I mean, it's theoretically possible, although I think, Sarah Palin probably has the same problems Trump would have with the caucus, but also because it's a matter of, I understand the speaker does not have to be a member of the House, but it's always been that way. So it would be a huge break from tradition for them not to have a member of the House to be the Speaker of the House. So it's very, very, very unlikely it being anybody outside of the Republican caucus. So who does that leave? Well, the two people who have announced as of now that I'm aware of, there may be more, but the two names that people are talking about, one is Jim Jordan and the other is Steve Scalise. And let me just say right now, Tony Parton says, Jim Jordan, easy choice. Yes, it is. It absolutely is. Jim Jordan's the guy. And I'm not just saying that because he's the guy Matt Gaetz recommended or he's the guy Thomas Massie recommended. Jim Jordan actually has been one of the very smart players in Washington in terms of balancing doing the right thing and not making too many enemies. And when I worked in Washington, it was 2013. The years before, the term before that, 2011 to 2012, Jim Jordan was the chairman of a group called the Republican Study Committee. And if you don't know what the Republican Study Committee is, in those days, 2012, it was effectively what the Freedom Caucus is now. And Jim Jordan had been the chair of it. A friend of mine who worked with me in Washington had been there when he was the chair, and she said it was absolutely amazing. The RSC was doing so many great things, with all kinds of great proposals and everything. And then in 2013, guess who became the chair of the RSC? Steve Scalise. And what did Steve Scalise do? He turned the RSC into basically just a vehicle of the Republican conference, into a tool of leadership. Nothing special happened at that point on. And in fact, it was after that term, I think it was in 2015, when Jim Jordan, Thomas Massie, and others had to form the Freedom Caucus to break away from the Republican Study Committee because the Republican Study Committee wasn't doing what it had set out to do anymore because Steve Scalise turned it into an instrument of leadership. So I have heard, in fact, Ron Paul himself made the point that if Jim Jordan was Speaker, he would no longer be the lead investigator in the weaponization of the government committee. And he's done work on oversight for years and years. And, that might all be true, but so what? Being Speaker is bigger, more important. And the fact that McCarthy was slow rolling the impeachment investigations, not giving the committee subpoena power, that's the kind of thing that Jim Jordan would change. So without question, and I'll definitely be doing an email blast first thing tomorrow morning about this, if we want to have a great speaker, we want to make the speakership great again, the pick, no question, Jim Jordan. And if you live in any of these districts, Jack Bergman's district, the UP, Northern Michigan, John Molinar's district, Central Michigan, Tim Walberg's district, Southern Western Michigan, Lisa McClain's district, the Thumb, John James's district, Macomb County, you got to be calling their DC office tomorrow, calling their district office, call them over the weekend, leave messages, get people to leave messages, say, you better vote for Jim Jordan when the vote comes up for Speaker, because there is no better candidate for that job. Jim Jordan will actually unite the factions, I believe, and in doing so, push forward serious investigations into the things that Democrats are doing, and he is fiscally responsible. So Yeah, Jeff says, yeah, but he's an Iowa State Buckeye. So, yeah, this is true. But come on, there's more important things than that. So yeah, that's what I really wanted to say is this is not a time to just sit at the sidelines. This is a time to be contacting your representatives in Congress and demanding that they support Jim Jordan for Speaker. Because if they don't, and if they jack around for a month and a half trying to get Steve Scalise from cutting some deal with the Democrats to avoid a shutdown and putting some rhino, if they botch that up, what's the point of supporting them at all? Mark Ashley Price, how do you feel about Patty Murray being currently next in line in the presidential succession after the vice president? I'm not worried about it. I mean, unless you think Joe Biden's going to croak and Kamala Harris is going to be assassinated, the presidential succession is not that important. I mean, it is, but it isn't. Why it would be Patty Murray? I mean, I don't remember what the details are. I know it goes president, VP, Speaker of the House, and then it goes somewhere else. But whatever. That's not likely. That's not a concern, really. The concern is who the next speaker is going to be. And the question is what our Michigan Republican delegation will do about it, because remember, none of them voted to get rid of McCarthy. And that's okay, I suppose. Most Republicans didn't. But now they need to do the right thing. And they need to back a conservative speaker so that we can actually accomplish something for once, rather than just be status quo of Republicans having no agenda, no victories, no initiatives. I mean, can anybody remember one thing John Boehner got done? Of course you can't. And nobody can remember anything because he didn't do anything. Kevin McCarthy didn't do anything. That's why he's gone. So that's my little update for tonight. Might do another one tomorrow, by the way, talking about RFK, who's apparently going to make a fatal blunder in his campaign. But we'll see. We'll see if I do that tomorrow. I probably should, because I'm going to meet him on Saturday. But I don't know. But I think it's an important thing to talk about. But for the time being, that's my chat for tonight. If you like this kind of content, be sure you hit that like button. And where's it? There it is. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. And as always, guys, thanks for all you do for liberty. Contact your congressman. Tell them to vote for Jim Jordan. Until next time. Peace.